Hello, this is Mike from Dimensional Walking. So it's been a little bit of a while since I made a new video, and I have been out traveling, doing a little field research, paranormal type field research, and some really interesting things. And I'll probably relate some of that in the future. So for now, I want to talk about one of my favorite subjects, fairies. Okay? Fairy folks, are they real? Some scholars say yes. Some forensic experts say yes. So here we go. And really, I'll say maybe. It's kind of a better term, but you'll see if you can believe these stories I'm going to tell you. You will probably say maybe more than maybe. So, so there's been some relatively recent discoveries. Some of these ones, this one, particular one I'm going to tell you about, goes back several years. Uh, and I don't think I've actually told this story before, at least on video. I think I wrote about it several years ago on True Seeker Forum, the website. So I got some that information. I dug up some other information, and I want to relate this to you. And I've had some of my own kind of personal experiences too. I'm going to relate at the end. So, anyways, so this story here is we're going to talk about some mummified bodies that were found in Derbyshire countryside in England. Okay, so there's this 8-inch remains, a complete body, and it had skin, teeth, flowing red hair, and it had been examined actually by anthropologists and forensic experts who confirmed that the body is genuine. It's a real body of an entity of some sort. Very much looks like a fairy, as fairies have been described to me. Um, so, X, there was X-rays done, of course, of this fairy body, and it did reveal that it was anatomically identical to a skeleton of a child, human child. The bones, however, were hollow. That would be very similar to what a bird body would be like. And that makes them particularly light. And I guess in theory, they had wings, they could probably fly to some degree. But there was another puzzling thing. There was the presence of a navel, belly button basically, which suggests that the beings reproduce the same as humans, despite the absence of reproductive organs. Or they did it somehow, some way. They weren't sure about it, but the point was that it's an indicator that it's similar to reproduction in the human vein. Okay, now the bodies basically they looked like a humanoid. Okay, and these were only 8 inches, 8 inches long. To remember that. So the remains were discovered by a local guy, a local man who wishes to remain anonymous. And so I'm going to tell his story, and I'm going to kind of tell it. He's going to kind of tell part of it too. So this guy was walking his dog along an old Roman road, which, as you probably know, in England, there's a lot of these old Roman roads. And it was situated between the villages of uh, Duffield and Belper. Okay, the area has long been shrouded in mystery. There was tales of ghostly highwaymen and strange dancing lights in the warm summer evenings. Okay, I don't know if those are fairies, but lights. Okay, so he was walking along the lane or the road at that point, which he passed by what is called the Old Iron Age burial, or in this case, it's really like a burial mound. Okay. And in that part of England, there's a lot of these kind of burial mound type things. When his dog began barking and acting quite strangely, he was barking in the direction of the burrow of a burrow area, and he would not go anywhere near it, even though it was strange because this is a normal route for them to go walk down this particular road or lane, and never before had a dog ever acted like this before. So he was curious and approached the mound to see what was disturbing his dog when he noticed something odd. In the side of the burrow, a fissure, as if a section of the ground had subsided and opened up. The crack measured about 2 feet and 1 foot wide, 2 feet long, 1 foot wide, and looked to have been formed recently, as he had never seen this hole before. He knelt down or kneeled down and looked inside the dark hole. The hill seemed to be hollow like a cave, as he could feel a kind of a cold draft against his skin. He used a small flashlight. They call it like a torch, but it's a flashlight. On his keychain, he had a flashlight, and he could see something in the darkness inside this hole. It was at this point he saw this something that startled him. It was 2 or 3 feet in front of him. He could see a human-like form, only it was much smaller. His initial instinct was to call the police as he thought maybe it was a body of a small child. But as he looked closer, he could see that this uh, woman was not the case. This was quite different. It was too small, and more importantly, it appeared to have wings. He did not want to touch it, so he used the stick to carefully drag it out and pick it up in one of his dog's poop bags. Of course, it was empty. You know, he didn't want to mix it with the poop, but anyways, it was empty, so he put it in the bag. He immediately called his wife, stating that he had found something unbelievable, and asked her to bring a camera and a box immediately. When she first arrived, she could hear the dog barking from some distance. Uh, she had no idea that what he had found as she approached the burrow, she could see her husband crouched down, looking at something on the floor or on the ground. And she asked her husband, "What did you find?" "See for yourself," he said. He looked down, and she looked down and saw a tiny but perfect mummified human body with hair, dark brown skin, and more disturbingly, wings. And the husband said, "I know what it looks like, but how can it be?" And there was not one, but there was another one inside that hole in the ground, and there probably is more. This is what the husband is saying to his wife. So the body was taken home in a biscuit tin and kept in the garage overnight. The following day, the local police were informed, and the remains were taken away for analysis. As a local expert on the paranormal, uh, this person approached by the police for some advice, although this was kept rather quiet to avoid ridicule and press attention. Uh, they were taken. This now we're talking about this paranormal guy. He was taken to the location by the man who originally discovered this amazing find. On a closer inspection, the burrow appeared to contain more than 20 tiny bodies, all in varying states of mummification. The dry cave, which it turned out to be like a cave, uh, had preserved all these 20 remains to some degree. Some of the bodies were even had tiny fingernails and eyebrows. To have remained since then, this particular guy had remained to document what he found as much as he possibly could. On one particular occasion, he was shocked to discover some attempt had been made to reseal the burrow, but by whom they did not know. So apparently somebody else had discovered it and decided against try to disturb it and just when it was going to seal it back up again. So the site appeared to be a burial ground, obviously, for fairy folk. An exact location has not been revealed, and no further remains have been removed from the mound. Okay, uh, so it's been determined, I guess, by some of the uh, forensic experts and anthropologists who actually looked at all this material and the bodies themselves, that there was a suggestion that the mummification period had been over 400 years, a period of about 400 years, just by looking at the condition of the bodies. So you got to remember this whole countryside has these like hidden burial mounds. Now, some of them are burial mounds for humans, and some of them apparently are burial mounds for fairies. Okay, so they have basically been undiscovered, let's say, for possibly centuries. Um, so how could these creatures exist, not being detected this long? So anyway, so this was kind of answered. This question has been answered by some uh, uh, cryptozoologists, and they explained they suspect that these fairy folk had evolved to suit their surroundings so well that they were virtually invisible to the naked eye. Their wings and skin pigmentation would camouflage them extremely well, and they would most likely live in the tops of trees and rarely venture down to the ground level. In the winter, they could probably retreat underground into cave networks. Whether they still exist is another question, but the remains found in Derbyshire have laid thousands of years of folklore to rest. So basically, they're saying that they're real. And now, I'm going to tell you a couple little my own personal things. First of all, my belief is that fairies are real. Okay, and one of the reasons I did there was I used to live in New Mexico, and there was a place called Sandia Mountains just outside of Albuquerque, and I used to explore that area quite extensively. And Rainbow and I have had some pretty amazing experiences up there. We saw a dogman close range, and we've talked about a lot of this stuff. Sasquatch. I've seen fairy people up there. I've taken some vortex photography of them. I could go on and on and on, but it's an area that's very rich in the paranormal, and this is at the top of Sandia Mountain, um, and that's just right outside of Albuquerque. So if you're really interested in seeing something, go up there. Now, I lived there in Albuquerque, so I spent a lot of time there. So that's also the key when you're looking at these kind of strange things. It's always best to kind of go back and see these uh, things. And one of the things I will tell you, if you go to True Secret Forum, you can, that's the website, you can put in there vortex photography and you can see some of the pictures of the various creatures and things I saw up there um, yourself. So, anyways, so when I went up there one time, I was walking in an area that I believed had some fairy mounds there. Okay. And the reason I believe that is because what was going on, I would walk quietly through there and sometimes I would just sit in the area and I would hear some, oh gosh, I would almost want to say singing or voices, although I couldn't understand the words and I didn't know where it was coming from. But then I discovered kind of an area I thought it was coming from. It was really kind of from these fairy mounds, and I kind of got close to the ground and I could hear them even better. And then the next time I came up, I brought a glass, and put my ear to the glass and put the glass down, and that seemed to amplify it. Now I could not understand any of the words or what they were saying, but it sounded like language of some sort, and it was very strange. It was very cool, but very strange. And I kind of left everything alone. As you probably know, if you know anything about fairies, you want to be very careful because they can be tricksters and they can cause some real craziness. So, and they've probably tricked a lot of humans in the past. But anyways, that's sort of my belief. One more little quick story. I told this one before in Washington State. I was doing some Sasquatch research with a dear friend of mine, and he was telling me a story about a couple of his friends that owned some property in Washington that they actually had fairies on their property. So we went there. Come to find out, the government had actually bought up the whole property, apparently, put fences all around it, put some crazy signs there. But the bottom line was this couple that owned it. I think one time they were walking through kind of a little bit of a road, and they saw this look like a swarm of mosquitoes from a distance. When they got closer, It was fairies. It was a whole bunch of fairies. One of them landed or came right in front of their face and kind of looked at them. And it was the description that they gave was very similar to the description I gave you in these stories about in England. So, anyways, I believe they existed. I guess they could still exist. Obviously, I heard them, and that was more than about 10 years ago. And I think that story I was telling you about Washington State a few seconds ago, that was probably about 15 or 20 years ago. So obviously, they probably do still exist. Anyway, so that's it. I hope you find it interesting. I know there'll be a lot of people that will poo-poo it, and that's fine. I got no problems with any of that. I'm not here really to convince you of anything. I'm just telling the stories and some of my own personal experiences. So with all that said, happy trails until we meet again. Bye-bye.